Hey guys, with all of the debate surrounding Anakin, I wanted to take a deep dive into his kit to figure out if he's really overpowered, and if he is, by how much. First, we should establish what makes a character too strong in a video game, or what makes something in a video game overpowered in general. In video games, something overpowered is simply more powerful by a significant margin than the average for that game without having any major flaws to make up for that increase in power. If a first-person shooter's average damage for a gun was around 300 damage per second, and a gun got added with 600 damage per second, no recoil, and a short reload time, it would definitely be overpowered. That gun has a clear advantage in damage, and there's no weakness to balance out such a high DPS number. If the average tank in a MOBA either has a lot of crowd control and no damage, or a lot of damage and no crowd control, then a character with both a lot of crowd control and high damage with no trade-offs would be overpowered. There would be no reason to pick anything but that tank. So, does this apply to Anakin's kit in Battlefront 2? Let's take a deep dive into his base stats and abilities to find out. Anakin starts out with 800 health, and with star cards he can go as high as 1000. This is the highest health total in the entire game, beating out Vader's former record of 950. Granted, Vader can still beat it if he activates Focused Rage. Anakin does 140 damage with a basic lightsaber swing from the front, 165 with a star card, and he has 4 abilities. Already we can see that Anakin is looking a lot stronger than some of the game's older characters like Darth Vader, who was included with the launch of Star Wars Battlefront 2. Vader has a maximum health pool of 950, his lightsaber swings only do 120 damage, 135 with Focused Rage, and Vader only has 3 abilities. Anakin's first ability is Passionate Strike. It hits twice, the first hit doing 50 damage and the second doing 150. Both are unblockable, and the move leads into a hard knockdown. At a total of 200 damage, this is already one of the hardest hitting abilities in the entire game. It's also unblockable, and because of this ability, Anakin has a favorable matchup against every single lightsaber villain in Battlefront 2. With star cards, this ability does a total of 240 damage, and it has an even lower cooldown. This means that Anakin gets his counter to lightsaber characters as often as 2 to 3 times per a lightsaber duel. This ability alone isn't enough to make Anakin completely overpowered, but it's definitely a good start on that path. For his second ability, we have Pull Dominance, and it's really nothing special. It's just a force pull. Kylo has one exactly like it, but for some reason, Kylo's does 70 less damage than Anakin's. Kylo does 10 without star cards, and Anakin does 80 without star cards. Anakin also gets a guaranteed Passionate Strike after his Pull Dominance, which adds 200 damage and extends the crowd control duration with a second knockdown. Yes, this is very strong. With star cards, Anakin and Kylo can both increase the damage by 50 and increase the range of the ability. This means that Kylo's does a whopping 60 damage, while Anakin's does 130. Anakin having one of the other character's abilities, but much stronger with a way better follow-up, is absolutely overpowered. It means there's no reason to use Kylo's ability, and that it's just laughable in comparison to Anakin's. They're both the same ability, and I think it'd only be fair to make Kylo's Force Pull do 80 damage, or to make Anakin's only do 10. For his third ability, Anakin has Heroic Might. It does a minimum of 100 damage, has a reduced damage effect while being activated, and reflects pretty much all damage that he would have taken without the damage reduction effect. It's basically a combination of Luke's Repulse, Yoda's Unleash, and then steroids and death sticks were also involved. It's currently the only ability in the entire game that can kill enemy villains in one hit, which is inherently overpowered. If nothing in the game can one-hit people, but Anakin has the potential to one-hit an entire team, maybe something should change about that ability. The only thing that comes close is Boba Fett's anti-hero rockets from the launch of the game before they were nerfed. Those still couldn't obliterate an entire enemy team, even with characters with over 1,000 health. This ability definitely needs to be toned down, and I don't see the argument supporting it. The proposed limit that was changed to unlimited last minute for Heroic Might was 400, which is still more than double what Unleash could do. Nerfing it to this originally planned amount is an obvious nerf that has to happen. Buffing Luke's repulse to do a minimum of 100, or nerfing Anakin's to do 75 at default and 190 at max would also be a pretty fair change if they decided to make it. Yes, this also means bringing Yoda's Unleash up to 400. If Anakin can do that, why can't Yoda? Anakin's final ability is his ultimate ability, and already it's overpowered. None of the other characters have ultimates, so it's really not fair that Anakin is the only one that gets to have one. The way to balance this would obviously to be give every character in the game an ultimate or to remove Anakin's. One is a way more fun option that would spice up the older roster, so I would much prefer DICE just go and give everybody an ultimate ability, and I think that would lead to more creative gameplay in the long run. As for what Anakin's ultimate actually does, he gets it when he takes around 2,500 damage. It does a little over 400 damage, around 420 damage, funnily enough, and it's both a force choke and a force push. The hit area is a huge circle around Anakin, and anybody caught in that circle is pretty much dead unless they're a villain. It's a really cool ability, but the fact that Anakin is the only character in the entire game that gets an ultimate in his kit is overpowered by itself. I think this ability is fine to keep and not change in any way, but I would definitely love it if Battlefront 2 updated older heroes with fresh new ults. Yoda could get a form of battle meditation that gives every living player on his team 140 temporary health and a 20% boost to damage. Phasma's ultimate could always be charged and just be a stance switch where she either pulls out her blaster or staff as long as she wants, which would give her the option to play as a pseudo lightsaber character. Darth Vader could also choke everybody in a huge circle around him, but instead of a force push, it pulls everybody to a spot in front of him, like Zarya's ult from Overwatch, and he does it with a satisfying crunch of his fist. There's a lot of potential here, and I hope DICE decides to act on it instead of letting Anakin be the only character that gets to have this level of fun. Overall, Anakin really does have way too much in his kit. Two of his abilities are just other characters' abilities, but much stronger. The other ability goes through blocks and does 200 damage, and he has the only ultimate ability in the entire game. Even his stats are better than anybody else's in the entire roster. We're talking about a guy with more health than Vader. And that being said, I think this character is actually really well designed. The way he moves and fights feels like he's the man who becomes Darth Vader later on in his life. The fact that he shares abilities with Kylo and Luke, Anakin's descendants, is really cool, and he brings a lot of fresh ideas to the table. I don't want them to butcher his kit in an attempt to nerf him. I would much rather they normalize him while buffing other characters as well. Without nerfs, Anakin currently counters every villain in the game. He can combo a force pull into Passionate Strike into 2 lightsaber swings to outright kill characters like Boba Fett or Palpatine, who thrive on being able to stay outside of lightsaber characters' range. Villains who can't block or have no defense against Anakin's force powers, and they still get knocked down by Passionate Strike, by the way, also have nothing they can do against Anakin. This means that Anakin is free to do whatever he wants to characters like Phasma, Bossk, and Iden Versio. As for lightsaber characters, thanks to Passionate Strike and his high base power and insane health pool, there isn't a 1v1 that Anakin loses. Some matchups are a lot closer than others. I personally think that Kylo and Vader do the best against Anakin out of the entire roster, but it's still a matchup that's in Anakin's favor. Obviously, a hero with a kit that counters every single villain needs some tweaking. So here's what I think they should change about the character. I would keep his lightsaber damage the same and just give Vader more health and 20 more lightsaber damage. Keep the base damage of Heroic Might the same, just buff Luke's repulse to share the same 100 base value, or give Luke's a higher base value of 150 since Luke doesn't have the option to charge his. Bring back the 400 damage cap on Heroic Might, keep Anakin's pull the same, just give Kylo that extra 70 damage on his pull, and you'll see a lot of what's unfair about Anakin is that he just does what other characters do, but way better. If we bring these characters up to Anakin's level, I think that'd be a fair way to nerf Anakin without actually nerfing him. We're also buffing 2 of the characters with the best chance to fight Anakin, Kylo and Vader, so we can hopefully form a meta where Anakin doesn't dominate every single villain on the enemy team. As for actual nerfs I think Anakin should get, I believe it'd be a really good idea to reduce his maximum health by 100, with 2 abilities that have high damage reduction, as well as his insane damage output. Giving him the most health in the entire game seems like a weird balanced decision. I'd also like DICE to remove at least 1 hard CC from his abilities. Hard CC is a form of crowd control that keeps the opposing players from moving. Stuns, roots, knockdowns, and knockups are all examples of hard CC. Soft CC is a form of crowd control that doesn't keep the player from moving. These would be slows, Rey's mind trick, Obi-Wan's mind trick, blinding effects, etc. Most characters in this game have a maximum of 2 hard CCs, like Chewbacca and General Grievous, and these characters are even seen as being a little heavy on the crowd control. Anakin has a whopping 4. Granted, one of those is an ultimate ability he doesn't get that often, but even if we exclude that, that's still 3 hard crowd control abilities. He has way too much CC. I propose that we replace the hard CC on his Passionate Strike with a form of soft CC. The one I would go with is a disarm. In Battlefront 2, a disarm would prevent lightsaber characters from blocking or swinging their lightsaber, or blaster characters from shooting. They can still jump, dodge, and use their abilities, but they wouldn't be able to swing back. Considering what attack this is based on, where it leads to a literal disarming, I think this is extremely fitting for Anakin's kit. It also keeps the unique aspect of being able to counter lightsaber characters who hold the block button way too much in Battlefront 2. With these minor changes and buffs to other characters, I think Anakin would still feel powerful without feeling like he's game-breaking. Let's be honest, if it was another character like Rey or Bossk that was this overpowered, everybody would be flipping shit. The only reason that more people aren't complaining is that it's Anakin, and people have wanted Anakin on the light side in Battlefront since the original Battlefront 2 added heroes and he was on the dark side. I get that we're all excited to have him in the game, believe me, I am too. Anakin / Darth Vader is my favorite character in the entire saga, and it's nice that his kit is so unique and fun. He's definitely my favorite of the light side heroes in this game, but that being said, balancing Anakin doesn't mean nerfing him into the ground either and making him unfun. Ideally, it just means that he's kept strong, but he doesn't break the entire balance of the game by himself anymore. With all of that said, I'll smell you guys later, and thank you so much for watching. By the way, let me know if you'd like to see a video where I come up with ideas for ultimate abilities for every character in the game. I think that would be a lot of fun to make. Make sure to join my Discord and follow me on Twitter too. Those links are in the description.